Hey guys, Chad Trofgerman here from IncredibleFlashTutorials.com, and today we are going to create an animated banner in Adobe Flash. Now, animated banners are great if you are wanting to advertise your website or a product or anything like that. They're basically animated ads that will advertise your product or whatever it is, and then people will click on the banner to learn more or to go to your website. And Flash is a great tool to create one of these in an eye-catching way. So let us begin and let us create one of these banners. The first thing I am going to do is I'm going to create a new file once Flash is open, of course. So I am simply going to go to my center column here, the Create New column, and I'm going to select Flash File ActionScript 2.0. because we won't need any of the advanced 3.0 ActionScript for this. So go ahead and click ActionScript 2.0 and your file will load up. And the first thing we are going to do is we are going to dictate the dimensions for this ad. I am going to create a horizontal banner, meaning we will want more width than height. So I'm simply going to click on my stage, and in my properties box located right here, I'm going to go down to the properties tab where it says size and click edit next to the size text. Once I do that, our document properties will appear and we can dictate some stuff right here. The first thing and the only thing I'm going to dictate are the dimensions in this dialog box. And for this, I'm going to make it 600 pixels wide by 100 pixels high. So I'm simply going to type in 600 right there, and then in my height tab, I'm going to type in 100. We can leave everything else the way it is. I'm going to put my frame rate at 30 frames per second for this. That'll be ideal for what we're doing. And I'm going to leave the background color white. And make sure the rule units is in pixels. So once you have done that, we are going to go ahead and click OK. Now the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to create a colored background for my banner. Now you can dictate the color of the stage on the properties box right here. However, I want this color to be a gradient to kind of pop out the color a little bit more. So in order to do this, I'm going to create a simple rectangle that is the size of the banner itself, which is 600 by 100. So I am simply going to come over here to my rectangle tool and click that. And in my properties box, in the fill and stroke options, I'm going to go ahead and click the outline color and make that blank. And the blank color looks like this, just right here. So I'm going to go ahead and click that. And now for my fill color, I'm going to go ahead and make it a gradient. So in order to make a gradient, I'm going to come up here next to my properties box. It says color. And I'm going to go ahead and click the color tab. If you don't have a color tab, or a properties box for that matter, you can always go to window and get it from there. Just click on color or properties or whatever window you need, and then it will appear and then you can access the tools in it. Okay, I have my color box open, so now I'm going to go ahead and dictate what color I want. The first thing I'm going to do is select the type, which is located right here. I'm just going to click that, and I'm going to go ahead and make it radial, just like that. And you'll see I already have a color kind of defined down here. This is from a previous project. So I'm going to go ahead and just take this color and move it to the end because I don't want it like that. There we go. And now I'm going to go ahead and dictate the colors I want for my radial color. Now, the color on the right will be your outside color of the radial, and the color on the left will be the inside. And you can kind of deduce that from the preview as you're seeing it right here. Anyway, I think I'm going to go ahead with a nice red color. So I'm going to double click on the right tab first to dictate that color. And I'm going to go ahead and select a dark red. Actually, maybe about this dark red right here. And now on the second color, I'm going to go ahead and double click that. And I'm going to maybe make it kind of orangish. So maybe like about this or this. Let's go and try and see how that looks first. That looks pretty good. And we can always kind of tweak this stuff as we're going along too. None of this is set in stone. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to just nudge this up a bit to make the red more dominant than the orange. About like that. Okay, now that we got our colors set, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to draw my rectangle into the stage. In order to do this, just have your rectangle tool selected, and I'm going to go to one of the corners. I'm going to click, hold, and drag, and create the rectangle, and release. And there we go. Now I'm going to take my selection tool, located right here, and click that. And I'm going to come over to the rectangle I just drew, and click that. And now I'm going to go and select my properties box right here. And I'm going to come down to the width and height and the X and Y, and I'm going to just make sure that the width is 600, which it's slightly off, which doesn't really matter too much, but just for this, I want it to be exact. So I'm going to type in 600, and I want the X and Y to be 0. Because if you notice, I'm going to take my zoom in tool and zoom in. You'll notice that the banner isn't all the way to the edge of my stage. And that's because it's slightly off on the x-axis. And instead of manually dragging this around and trying to make it fit, you can simply come over here to your properties box, select the x-axis, and type in 0. And make sure 0 is the same for y as well, and hit return or enter, and you'll see that it snapped the rectangle right into place so it's overlapping the stage, just how we want it, so there are no spaces anywhere. I'm just going to go ahead and zoom back out here so we can continue on. There we go. Okay. Now I'm going to go ahead and just leave the background color for a second. I might make the orange part a little bit wider once I get into this a little bit more, but I'll see how it goes. For right now, I'm going to enter text into the ad. Now before I do this, I'll just remind you of something. If you are editing or following along with this tutorial using my sample file provided in your tutorial zip, you might get an error when you open this file that there are some fonts missing. That is because I am using a font here, and I will include the font with the tutorial if you so choose to use it. But you can always go ahead and select a different font. Just know if you ever download Flash files and it has text in it and they're using different fonts that you don't have, you will get an error and it will default you to a basic font. So just keep that in mind. It's not a big deal. And I'll include the font along with this just so you have it. So let's go ahead and add some text to this. Obviously we're going to use the text tool to do this. So I'm just going to go ahead and click on the text tool located right here. And I'm going to come over here and I'm going to make a new layer just by clicking that button right there. And I'm going to go ahead and actually lock the background layer. And while I'm at it, I'm going to go ahead and name it background, just so we don't get confused. And there we go. So I'm going to go ahead on my second layer here, and I'll actually name this text. And I'm going to just put my text cursor somewhere on the banner, and I'm going to go ahead and type out my text. This banner, if I haven't already mentioned, is for my personal website, since this is just for demonstration purposes, and I'm assuming you'll be using it for your website once you make your own banner. So my text is going to say, learn Flash, and I'm going to add 3 dots. Now I'm going to go ahead and take my selection tool here. Obviously this is really big and it's not really a good color. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to go to the properties box right here, and I'm going to go to the size, and I'm going to just simply click, hold, and drag to the left to reduce the size a little. Or if you prefer, you can manually enter a number by clicking on the number and then entering in a number. But anyway, I'm just going to go ahead and drag it for right now, and I'm going to move it more to the center like this. I'm going to go ahead and just kind of nudge it over a little with my arrow tools to get it kind of centered in, or just kind of visually center it in. And that looks good. Now, obviously this color isn't really going to work, but I'm not so sure about the font either. So I'm going to go ahead and just click on this, and I'm going to come over here to my character fonts here. I'm going to click the drop down menu. I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to select a font that looks a little bit better than the one I have. And as you can see, we have samples here of every font, so you can get an idea of what you would like. Let's go ahead and try Denmark. I think I like that, actually. It looks pretty nice. It's not too complicated, but it's clean enough for it to be readable. So I'm going to go ahead and use that one. And when you change the font, sometimes it shrinks a little because all fonts are different. So I'm going to go ahead and just nudge this up a tad by going to my size again, click, hold, and dragging to the right, and just making it a little bit bigger like that. I'm just going to go ahead and I'm going to nudge it back up like so. Okay. Now we need a color for this that isn't light blue because it looks not too good on that background. So I'm going to click the text again, and I'm going to go over to my color, which is located in my characters tab in the properties box. I'm going to click this, and let's try making it white like this. That's a little bit better, but I think I'd like to go even one step further. See, in Flash you can apply filters to your text just like you can to movie clips in Flash, and I talk about that in past tutorials, how you can apply effects to movie clips. But anyway, if you go to your properties box with your text selected with your selection tool and you scroll down, you'll see there's a filters tab at the bottom here. If you click the first icon on the bottom, the add filter icon, you can then go ahead and add a variety of different effects to your text. I'm going to go ahead and select the drop shadow effect, and you'll see now that we have a shadow underneath the text. And you can go ahead and adjust some stuff here on the bottom, like you can make the quality high, medium, or low. I'm actually probably going to keep it at low because I don't really want so much a drop shadow effect as I do just kind of just darkness underneath it, which I know is a shadow. So I guess I do want a drop shadow, but I don't want it to be really I don't want the edges to be very faded or anything. I want it to be very definite. And so I'm going to up the strength a little bit, just make it a little bit darker. And as far as the blur, I'm going to actually reduce it a little bit. Actually, I'm just going to put it to 0. And I might try adjusting the distance a little bit, which is located right here. Just click, hold, and drag, and you can put it out a little. And I think I'll put it about right there. So that'll work. Okay, so now we have our text, we have our font and our colors laid out. Now I'm going to go ahead and actually animate this text coming into the banner. This is going to be the first part of my banner. There's actually going to be 3 main parts. So this is the first main part. So let's get situated with that. The first thing I need to do is I need to make my text a symbol. So then I can tween it on the timeline. And again, I've covered these techniques in past beginner tutorials on my website if you're interested in learning more. But if you know how to do this stuff, it'll be a piece of cake when following along with me. So I'm going to go ahead and click the text, and I'm going to go ahead and hit F8, and I'm going to create the symbol, and I'm going to name it Learn Flash, just kind of what it says, and I'm going to go ahead and leave it a graphic and click OK. Now what I'm going to do, my idea is to have the title move in from the left into the center of the banner. So it'll start with nothing on the banner, and then the text will fly in. It'll say Learn Flash. So I'm going to go ahead and on the timeline, I'm going to go to, let's try frame 50 to start with. I'm going to put my cursor to frame 50. I'm going to click it. I'm going to hold in Shift. And I'm going to click the bottom layer on frame 50 on the timeline. I'm going to right click and I'm going to insert a keyframe. Just like that. Now at frame 15, let's try it at 15. I'm going to right click on the text layer and I'm going to insert a keyframe. On frame 1, I'm going to click frame 1 on the text layer. I'm going to delete the text. Remember, keyframes indicate change on the timeline. So I actually didn't delete this entirely. I just deleted it from the first frame. Because on frame 15, voila, there it is. On frame 15, I'm going to click this text and I'm going to drag it out this way to the left until it is completely off the stage, just like that. Now on frame 50, it's on the stage. Frame 15, it's off. I'm going to right click frame 15 and I'm going to select Create Classic Tween. You can use Create Motion Tween, but for this example, I'm going to keep it simple and do a Classic Tween. Just go like that. And now, when we watch this, we can see it come in, and there it is. Now if I go back to frame 1 and hit enter, it comes in. Now I think it might be a little bit too slow, and this is easy to correct. All you have to do is reduce the number of frames that are in between the animation. And in order to do this, I'm just going to go ahead and go to frame 50. I'm going to click, hold, and drag. And I'm just going to click, hold, and drag, and just put it back to about frame 35. Let's try. Let's go back to frame 1 and hit enter. Might be a little bit too fast now. So again, I'm going to go ahead and just make this, and I'm going to nudge it forward to frame 40. Maybe that will be the magic number. Preview this again. I think that's about good. And I can adjust it later on when I see it all together. It might be still a bit too fast, but I will see as I go through here. So another thing you might notice, and this is kind of a minor detail, but since I manually dragged this text off the stage, there's a very good chance that I adjusted the y-axis elements of this because I didn't do it mathematically. So as you can see, it slightly moves up and over as it comes in. That's because when it's here, it's lower than it is here. And this is easy to correct. Go ahead and go to frame 40 on your timeline and select your text symbol and check out its y-axis position. It's on 10.0 when it's here. Let's go back to frame 15 and click that. You'll notice that the y-axis is not the same. Again, we're changing the x-axis of this and not the y-axis. So in order to make it look a little bit cleaner and a little bit more professional, I'm going to change this to 10 as well. And it just nudges it up slightly, but it's just enough so that it looks better when it comes in. So there we go. Let's preview it one more time. Now it's on to the next step. Before I continue, I must apologize because I actually did something wrong here. For this symbol that we made, I actually do want it to be a movie clip because I am going to apply an effect to it coming up here really quick, and I forgot that I need it to be a movie clip. So that's really easy to change. If you just go to your library and you'll see that your symbol is located right there. If you right click and go to properties, you can go ahead and change it to a movie clip just like that and click OK. And just to be safe, I'm also going to go ahead and create a keyframe right here, click the symbol, and dictate it as a movie clip right there as well. And there we go. Shouldn't be a problem then. Okay, now for our next step, as I said, we are going to apply a filter to this text to add to the banner. So what my idea is here, it's coming in and it says Learn Flash, and it's going to hold there for a few seconds, and then the text is actually going to light up and glow, and the whole banner is going to turn to white. And then that white's going to fade out, and there's going to be some text that says in a flash. So it's going to come in and say Learn Flash, Flash, in a flash. So yeah, that's the most cleverest thing ever, isn't it? Anyway, that's what the idea is moving forth here. So the first thing we need to do is we need to put some frames in here so this stays here long enough so people can read it before it disappears. So I'm going to come on down here to the timeline, and I'm going to go, let's say, to about frame 100. I might need more, I might need less. We're just going to try it for right now. I'm going to click the top frame, hold in Shift, then click the bottom frame so that selects both. I'm going to right click and I'm going to insert frame. So let's go ahead and give this a try and see how long that holds. I think that's about right, actually. We can, again, of course, adjust as I see this whole thing in action, but we will see. So at frame 100, I'm going to go ahead and right-click and insert a keyframe. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to dictate how long I need it to take to turn completely to white. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to come out to, let's try frame 130, and I'm going to go ahead and click that, hold in Shift, and click the bottom one, because again, just as a reminder, the reason why I keep holding in Shift and selecting the bottom one is because I want this background to be consistent and stay there throughout this whole animation. If there's no frames down here, if this is less frames than this, then my orange reddish background will go away. Just keep that in mind. Anyway, I'm going to go on 130, right click, insert a frame, and then I'm going to go ahead and click off, then right click and insert a keyframe on the text layer itself. So now I'm going to go ahead and on frame 130, I'm going to click the symbol and then go down to my filters box that I just demonstrated a few minutes ago with my text. I'm going to add a filter and I'm going to apply a glow filter to this. And now I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to make the quality high this time because I kind of want it to have that faded edge. I'm going to make the color white, so just simply click on the color box and select your color. I'm going to go ahead and kind of adjust the blur here a bit. And then I'm going to go ahead and make the strength pretty high. Really high, actually. Let's try about there. And then let's go ahead and adjust the blur again. Right about there. Right about there. Okay. Now if we go ahead and we go back to frame 100 and we right click, insert a Classic Tween, and we hit return or enter to play this, we'll see that it's glowing up. Now we are going to add yet another element to this. We are going to put a white strip over this and have it fade in as well to kind of add to this whole effect. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and create a new layer, just like that. Now, just to save time, I'm going to go ahead and unlock my background layer, the bottom layer, and I'm going to go ahead and select that rectangle. And this time I'm going to copy the rectangle. So I'm going to go to Edit, Copy, or Command C or Control C if you prefer. I'm going to go ahead and lock the background again. Then I'm going to go to frame 100 on my new layer, and I'm going to right click on frame 100 and insert a keyframe. And now I'm going to go ahead and go to Edit, Paste in Place. This will paste the object that I just copied in the exact same spot it was before. Just go like that. And now we pasted the orange background over the text. However, I'm going to go ahead and make an edit to this. I'm going to go ahead and take my paint bucket tool, and I'm going to select the color white in my properties box by clicking on the square right here and selecting white. And then I'm going to go ahead and click on my rectangle with the paint bucket tool and color it white. Finally, I'm going to go take my selection tool located right here, come down to the white rectangle, click it. I'm going to go ahead and hit F8 to make a symbol, and I'll make it a movie clip this time since I learned from my first mistake. And we're going to name this rectangle White Overlay. I'm going to go ahead and click OK. And now I'm going to come down here and I'm going to right click on frame 130 on this new white overlay layer, and I'm going to insert a keyframe. Come back to frame 100, I'm going to click the white rectangle, I'm going to go to my properties box and look all the way down here to the color effect. I'm going to select the style drop down menu, and I'm going to select alpha, and I'm going to make sure it's 0, meaning it's invisible. So now I'm going to go ahead and right click on frame 100 and then create a Classic Tween. So now when this lights up, it's going to also make the entire thing light up, because we are now progressing the rectangle going from transparent to opaque, and the text is going from no glow to that big glow that we just dictated. So to see this in action, we are going to go back to frame 1 and then hit return or enter and see it kind of play out. Okay, so far so good. Now we are going to add some more text. So I'm going to go ahead and create a new layer. And before I continue, I should actually name this layer as well. I have a very bad habit of not naming layers, and I apologize for that. I'm just going to go ahead and double click this third layer and name it Overlay right now. And this new layer, I'm going to name Text 2, just like that. Okay, so we have it flashing. Now on frame 130, on the new layer I just created, I'm going to right click and insert a keyframe. And then I'm going to come over to my text tool, and I'm going to leave all the stuff the same because I want it to be the same size and font as my previous text I just created. And I'm going to come over here, click, and then type learn Flash, it says, ... and my next text is going to be in a flash. And I'm going to come over here to my selection tool. The text is white, so we don't want that. So I'm actually going to come down here and make the color black, just by selecting on my color tab in the character properties box. And then I'm going to take my selection tool and I'm going to move it over to the center, just kind of visually eyeballing this. And I'll take my arrow tools and I'll nudge it a little, and yep, I think that's actually about good. So there we go. Now I'm going to go ahead and click this text, and just like before, I'm going to make it a symbol. So I'm going to go ahead and hit F8, and I'm going to make it a movie clip, and I'm going to name it In a Flash, just like what the text says. And then I'm going to go ahead and click OK. Now, I'm basically going to do what I did with the overlay. I'm going to create a series of frames, and I'm going to make the first frame transparent and then the last keyframe opaque. So I'm going to go ahead and let's go to frame 160. I'm going to click the top one and then hold and shift and go all the way down to the fourth one. I'm going to right click, insert a frame, and then I'm going to go ahead on the top layer I just created, right click frame 160 and go to insert keyframe. And then I'm going to come back to frame 130, click the symbol, go to the color effect properties box, go to the style drop down menu, click that and go to alpha, and then it disappears. And again, we're going to right click that frame then and insert a Classic Tween, and then it'll come in just like this. So let's go ahead and preview this again. Starting at frame 1, we are going to go ahead and click that and hit return or enter, and then we see the text come in, and then it flashes out, and we have in a flash. Now I'm going to go ahead and add a little bit more visual flair to this. I'm going to go back to frame 130 and click the symbol. You can see the symbol outline, even though it's white right now, or transparent I should say. We can still click it. And I'm going to go down to my filters box right here, and I'm going to go ahead and click blur. And just for really quick, I'm going to go ahead and make this and unalpha this really quick, make this opaque so I can see what I'm doing, just really quick. And I'm going to go ahead on the blur properties now. I'm going to go ahead and make it high, and I'm going to blur it out quite a bit, like about this. And I'm going to go ahead then and take my alpha and put it back. So now, when it comes in, it's like it's focusing in, like that. And that might look a little bit better. So let's go ahead and just preview this one more time. Learn Flash. Fume. In a flash. I think that looks a little bit better. It adds a little bit more visual flair to this. And for this banner, I'm trying to keep it pretty simple. And really, when you do banners, they shouldn't be like overly complicated either, because you're just trying to get a very clear message across. And I believe that's pretty clear. Okay. Now I'm going to go ahead and just like the other text, I'm going to just put some empty frames in here so everyone has a chance to read this text. And I'm just going to go ahead and extend this to about frame 190. And I'm just going to go ahead and click the top layer, hold and shift, click the bottom layer, and go ahead and right click and insert frame. So I'm just going to go ahead and preview this really quick just to see. Actually, I'll extend that up probably a little bit further to 210. So I'm going to go ahead and go 210 on the top layer, hold and shift, 210 on the bottom layer, right click, insert a frame, and then just try that again. Okay, that about works. I'm going to go ahead then, and now I'm going to have this text fade out, and then I'm going to have my logo come in, and then I'll have some text accompanying that by fading in or doing some sort of animation. So I'm simply going to right click on the top layer and go to insert keyframe, and I'm going to go to frame 230, and I'm going to click that, hold and shift, go down to the bottom, click that, right click and insert a frame, and then come back to 230 on the top layer, right click and insert a keyframe. Again, remember keyframe equals change, just reminding you of that. And we're going to go ahead and go to 230, which we are at right now. Click the symbol, go over to our properties box, and then I'm going to go ahead and go to the color effect, go to style, and go to alpha, and make sure it's on 0, which it is. And then go back to 210, right click, create a Classic Tween, and then we have it fade out. Now I'm going to have my logo swoop in. I already have my logo created. It's actually really simple. It's actually on my site. You've probably seen it before if you have been on my site. And so I'm just going to go ahead and bring that in as an image. So first thing I'm going to do is create a new layer by just going down to this new layer icon and clicking that. And then I'm going to double click my name here and name this logo and hit enter. Now I'm going to go ahead and right click on 230 and insert a keyframe. Then I'm going to go to File, Import, Import to Stage, and then go ahead and locate the logo. I have it right here in my Web Assets folder. I'm just going to go ahead and double click it, and poof, there it is. The first thing I'm going to do is hit F8 with it selected to create a symbol. I'm going to go ahead and just name it logo, and I'll keep it as a movie clip. So go ahead and click OK, and now we can animate it just like we have all the others. My idea here is to have it come in from the right and go to the left corner, actually where it is right now. So I'm going to simply go ahead and come out to 255. I'm going to go ahead and right click and insert a keyframe. I actually guess I don't have to make all these other frames follow along anymore because, well, it's just a white background. And so you really don't have to carry those on anymore. You actually didn't have to carry on the background one for quite some time, but as a habit I always do that. But anyway, side note there, we have our animation extended to 255 on this layer. So I'm going to go back to 230 and I'm going to click, hold, and drag and bring it out to about here. We're going to go ahead and then right click this frame on this layer and create a Classic Tween. And if we go ahead and hit enter, it comes right in. And I think that's about the right speed. So we'll just go ahead and leave it like that for right now. Okay, and you know, after looking at this again, I think I want a color background at the end here of this ad. The white works well for the flash, but it's kind of boring now. It doesn't add a whole lot to the scene. So I'm going to go ahead and have a color fade in before the text flies in. So I'm going to come down here to my timeline, and I'm going to click right below the text 2 layer, just like this, and then I'm going to go and select new layer, just like that. And then I'm going to go ahead and right where the keyframe where this starts to fade out, I'm going to go ahead and right click and insert a keyframe in right underneath it. So we can go ahead and add a background in there to fade in. In order to get the background, I'm going to do the same technique that I did before when I was getting the white overlay, and that is I'm going to just copy my original background that I have created. Again, it's kind of a lazy method, but it's very effective, so I don't have to remeasure or anything since I'm trying to keep the dimensions exact. So I'm just going to come back here to frame 1. I'm going to select my background, and I'm going to go ahead and copy it with it selected by doing Control C or Command C, or if you prefer, you can go up to Edit, Copy. And then I'm going to come back here to the layer I just created in my new keyframe, and I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to paste in place by going to Edit, Paste in Place. Now, I don't really like this color for this end part. I kind of want it to be a little bit more, I guess, bluish, maybe bluish grayish, kind of like the background color of my website actually. So I'm going to go ahead and go with this background color selected. I'm going to go to the properties box up here to the color, and I'm going to go ahead and create a new color. So let's start with the outside color. I'm going to go ahead and double click on this tab right here to select a new color. And let's go ahead and try something like this, just to kind of start with. And then I'm going to double click on the orange, and let's go ahead and make it kind of grayish like that. Maybe a little bit lighter. So I'm going to go ahead and click that gray color again, and I'm going to use my slider right here to lighten it up a bit, like that. And then, yeah, I think that'll work. I might make this one a little bit lighter as well, actually. Just a little bit. Actually, no, I think I'll leave it like that. There we go. So then, I'm going to have this fade in just like I did all my other stuff, actually. And that's really easily done. The first thing I'm going to do, with my background selected, is hit F8 to create a symbol. And I'm going to name this new background, just like that. And then I'm going to come over here to frame 230, right click, insert a keyframe. And then I'm going to come back here to frame 210. I'm going to go ahead and click the symbol, go to my properties box, go to my color effect, my style, and choose alpha, again to make it invisible. And then go ahead and right click that frame then and create a classic tween. So then it fades in as that fades out. And then my logo will come in. And you know, after looking at this a little bit further, I think I'm going to adjust this to be from a radial gradient to a linear gradient. The reason being, this color is going to not make this text very readable because it's kind of darker, as you can see, and it might be a little hard to read that. So, very simple fix. I'm just going to go ahead and double click to go into my symbol. Oops, that's the wrong symbol. Let's double click out here because we accidentally double clicked on the invisible flash text. Let's double click right here to go into our background symbol. And I'm going to go ahead and just go to color, and I'm going to go to linear, and then our settings should still be there. I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to change this from gray to white, just like that, because I think it'll be better if it's white instead of gray. It'll make that text pop a little bit better. So I'm going to go ahead and take my paint bucket tool, and I'm going to go down to the bottom of this background, and from the bottom up I'm going to click, hold, and drag to create, oops, I meant the other way, I'm sorry. From the bottom up down, we're going to click, hold, and drag so that the white appears at the top. And I'm going to try to make this about the size, or the height I should say, of that text. Let's see how, maybe a little bit more, like that. Okay, let's back out, and then it comes in just like that. And I think that looks good. Now I'm going to go ahead and place some text on the blue part. So basically we have our title up there, and then I'm going to go ahead and place some text in the blue part to kind of separate it. So what this text is going to include are the different tutorials that my site contains. Flash is the main one, but there are also other subjects that I do. So on the bottom here, I'm going to make a text that says Flash, Dreamweaver, Adobe After Effects, and then I'm going to make one more that says and more, because in the future I am going to be adding more tutorial subjects, and that will cover this and make this banner a little bit more future-proof, so I don't have to update it right away. So I'm going to go ahead and create a new layer, just like this, and I'm going to name this layer Flash, hit enter, and at 255 I'm going to right click and insert a keyframe. Then I'm going to come over here to my text tool, and I'm going to go ahead and type out Flash, just like that. Now I'm going to go ahead and use a different font for this, because just to add a little bit of variety. I don't want it the same font as I had my other titles. So I'm going to click this text and then go to Properties, and then click on the Character Family drop-down menu, and then I'm going to try to find something that's a bit more bold, something that's a bit more, I don't know, fatter, I guess that'd be the word, and see if I can find anything that fits that description. What's this one look like? Yeah, we'll go ahead and use this one. This will do. I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to change the color to white so it stands out on this blue. And then I'm going to go ahead and add a shadow like I did before. So I'm just going to come down here to my filters, go to add filter, drop shadow, and then I'm just going to go ahead, I'll leave it on low, I'll up the strength a little bit, and then I guess I will go ahead and just up the distance a tad like that. There we go. That will work. And now I'm going to adjust the size on my size tab right here so it fits in nicely down here. I think I'll make it a little bit smaller. There we go. I think that will work. Now I'm going to go ahead and I'm just going to make this a symbol right away. So I'm going to click it and hit F8 and then name it Flash and then hit OK, and I'll keep it as a movie clip. And then I'm going to go ahead and edit, copy this symbol, and then edit, paste in place, which is fine. And then with my selection tool, I'm going to drag to the right because I just pasted this new one in its place. And now I'm going to right click this symbol and go to duplicate symbol. And again, if all this symbol stuff is confusing you, please refer to my previous beginner tutorials on symbols, and they should help you out a lot. So I'm going to go ahead and name this one Dreamweaver. Hit return or enter, and then I'm going to go ahead and double click and go in here to the symbol, and then I'm going to type out Dreamweaver again, changing this to Dreamweaver. Just like that. There we go. I'm just going to move this over. And I might need to shrink these because I'm probably not going to have enough room for all my text. But anyway, go ahead and I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to go ahead and just go to edit, paste in place, drag this out to about here, right click, duplicate symbol, and name this After Effects, hit OK, and then double click here and change Flash to After Effects, and then hit OK. And then I'm going to do one more. Just going to go ahead, go to edit, paste in place, drag this out, and go out here, right click, duplicate symbol, and type out and more, and hit OK, double click, and change this to, you guessed it, and more. So there we go. Now I'm going to have to get all this to fit in. So I'm going to simply go ahead and move this over like this. And I'm going to actually probably have to shrink these, as I said before. So it's going to go ahead and make sure everything's lined up here. And I'm going to go ahead and just select, oops. I'm going to select this symbol, hold in Shift, and then select the other symbols. Go up to my free transform tool and select that, and I'm going to shrink these manually just to kind of see how this looks. Okay, now I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to move Flash over more now because it's not touching this as much because it's smaller. Move that up a little. This up a little. Still need a little bit more room, so I'm going to move this a little bit more over this way, this way, this way. Need even a little more. Just going to go ahead and shrink this a little bit more. Don't want it too small. Okay, let's try this. This will work, I believe. Okay, I believe that will do it. Just kind of space these out evenly a little bit more, and we will be good to go. Let's move this up. I'm going to check to make sure that everything's on the same y-axis. So 67, that's a little off, but it's okay. 67, 67. Okay, I believe we are good to go there. And now I'm going to do one more thing, because kind of looking at this, it would probably be nice if they looked a little bit more divided, or a little bit more neater, if anything. So I'm going to go ahead and take my selection tool, double click on the flash symbol to go into it, and then double click to modify the text. And now I'm going to hold an Option and hit 8. This will add like a bullet. And I'm going to go ahead and give that a space like that. And then we're going to come out here, and I'm just going to go ahead and move this in a little bit so it's kind of evenly spaced with Dreamweaver. And now I'm going to do the same thing behind Dreamweaver. Double click to go into it, space, hold an Option and hit 8, and then go ahead and click out. Now this command might be different for you PC users. I know you can easily find out though by going to your character map. And again, this isn't anything you have to do. If anything, you could actually draw circles in Flash into these symbols if you really wanted to. I just thought this would help divide it up a little bit. I'm going to go into After Effects, space, Option 8, click out, just like that. And then we won't have to do one for N more because there's nothing after that. So let's kind of go ahead and space these out a little bit more evenly. And there we go. Now, I'm going to go ahead and I want to animate these in. I think I want them to come in one at a time. So Flash, Dreamweaver, After Effects, and more. So this is easily done. The first thing we need to do though is we need to separate these on their own layers. So what I'm going to do is I'm simply going to take Dreamweaver, I'm going to go to Edit, Cut, and then make a new layer and label it Dreamweaver. And then I'm going to right click and insert a keyframe, and then I'm going to paste into place by going to Edit, Paste in Place, or if you prefer, you can go to Command-Shift-V, which is what I prefer because it's quicker. So then I'm going to do the same thing for After Effects, just cut it with Command-X or Edit, Cut, and then I'm going to go up here and make a new layer, name it After Effects, then right click, insert a keyframe, and then Control-Shift-V into place, and then the and more, cut it out, make a new layer, and more, right click, and then Control-Shift-V. There we go. Now I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to come over here and I'm going to extend these frames out to about 300 frames. So again, just click up here and then hold in Shift and then come down here, then right click and insert frame. And again, you don't have to insert frames past that because these are no longer used down here. But you can if you want to. It's probably a good practice to do it, just so you don't miss anything later on when you're doing other projects that require you to have all the frames and the layers in one place. Okay, the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to, for these 4 texts, I'm going to click on 300, Shift, and then click on all the text ones, and then right click and insert a keyframe on frame 300 for them. Now, I'm going to come back here to frame 255 and delete Dreamweaver, After Effects, and more. So Flash is just there. Now on frame, I'm going to go ahead and insert a frame on 265 and go ahead and insert a keyframe. Come back to frame 255. And I think now what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my free transform tool and I'm going to go ahead and shrink this text down to about here. And then I'm going to go ahead with my color effect on the style drop down menu, click that and select alpha so it's disappeared entirely. Then I'm going to go ahead and create a Classic Tween. So right click and create a Classic Tween. So now when we see this, it's going to pop up just like that. Pretty slick. I'm actually going to go ahead and move this frame down a little by click, hold, and dragging it to make this come in a little bit faster. So, boink, there we go. Got it. Now, I'm going to take this frame right here, the Dreamweaver one, click, hold, and drag it back to here. And I'm going to right click on 265 and insert a keyframe. And then I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to shrink it to about like that. I'm going to go ahead and make it invisible with my alpha, and I'm going to right click, insert Classic Tween, and there we go. And I'm actually going to move this one more frame up, so it's the same amount of frames as this is. See? So they're equal. So we have Flash, Dreamweaver. Then we're going to move this over and move it back to here, and we're just going to repeat the process. I'm going to insert a keyframe right here. Then I'm going to go ahead and shrink this like so, and then I'm going to make it alpha, right click, and insert a Classic Tween. So we have it coming in just like this. And the last one will be and more. Go ahead and move this over like that. Right click, insert a keyframe so that it's the same amount of frames as these are. Come here, shrink it, alpha it, and tween it. Actually, that might be a little bit too fast, but that's easily corrected. I'm just going to go ahead and I'm going to extend this out a couple frames. I'm just going to move it over. I'm going to do the same thing here. And as you can see, when you're doing this stuff, it takes a lot of time and it takes a lot of tweaking. You don't always get it right the first time. That's something to always keep in mind. So don't get frustrated when doing this stuff. It's pretty much, it's an art. It really is. You just got to work with it and mold it until it is how you want it. Just going to move this over. And then move this back over like this. There you go. There we go. I think that looks good. And there we go. I think we are almost done. There is one last thing I would like to do though. I wasn't quite sure when I started on this, and again, you know, you just kind of build on this as you go. But I do want something in this white space right here because it looks kind of empty and it doesn't really look right. So I'm going to go ahead and add some text here that says Video Tutorials 4, and then my text down here will pop up. So I'm going to go ahead and click on my logo layer and then create a new layer by clicking the new layer icon right there, so I can add a layer in between the logo and the top pop-up text. And I'm going to go ahead and name this layer Tutorials 4, just like that. And I'm going to go ahead and click my Flash layer, hold in Shift, and then click 300 on the N More layer, so I can click, hold, and drag this over some so we can have time to animate this text in. I'm going to come down here to the new layer, right click on frame 255, and insert a keyframe. And now I'm going to type out my text. So I'm going to come up here to my text tool, click that, and come over here about, and then type out Video Tutorials, almost I forgot what I was going to type, 4, and then we'll have that pop in. Now I'm going to go ahead and reduce this in size a little bit. I actually think I'm going to go ahead and take my free transform tool, squish it a little, kind of like this, and move it down like that. kind of come down here. Maybe a little bit smaller. Okay, I think this will work. And so I think what I'll do is I'll just have it maybe fade in. I think that'll work. So I'm just going to go ahead and make this a symbol. Go F8 and then go name it video tutorials ... and hit OK and make sure it's a movie clip. And then I'm going to actually, you know what? I think I'm going to have it come in from the side like the logo did. So we have the logo come in. Actually, maybe I'll have it come from the top. Let's try that first. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to insert a keyframe right about here. And I'm going to come back to my frame right here. And I'm going to click, hold, and drag and move it up out of the frame. And I'm going to go ahead and right click and insert a Classic Tween. And then have it come down like that. And then my stuff will come in like that. So if I just watch this in action, I think I need a little more space between all this. So I'm just going to go ahead and click on my flash layer right here, the first frame of the flash layer. I'm going to hold in shift, click on frame 316 on the and more layer so I can select all this. I'm just going to move it over a tad like this. And then I'm going to just move this over a little bit like this. And then so it comes down. Okay, oops, go back there. You'll notice that when it gets to this point, the background cuts out. And again, that's what I've been kind of talking about this whole time. You got to make sure that your logo layer and your background layer and all that keep up the speed with the layers that you just put in, or else they won't be there. So I'm just going to go ahead and click on 325 here and scroll down, hold in shift to about here, right click and insert a frame just like that. So there we go. Comes in, scrolls down, and there we go. Now I'm going to go ahead and add some final frames here just to maintain this so people can read all this. So I think I'll put it to about frame 400. Right click and insert a frame. Now when you export this, you can dictate how many times it loops, if at all. And so that's something to keep in mind too, and I'll show you that right at the end here. So you could have this loop like 3 times. So then at the end, after the end of the third loop, it'll just remain here, and then people will see this for always. Or you can have it loop forever, whichever you choose. So let's go ahead, and we need to add an element here so that when people click on this, it'll take them to the website, assuming you're making this in SWF. If you're making this banner in animated GIF, or if you're making it a movie file, which typically you wouldn't make these movie files, but if it's not in SWF, then you can't have the clickable link in it. However, for the sake of argument, we're hoping that you're making this in SWF, so we'll go ahead and add in that clickable URL anyway. So what I'm going to do then is I'm going to come back to frame 1. I'm going to go ahead and create a new layer, and I'm going to name this layer button. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to do the same trick we've been doing from the beginning. I'm going to click this background, and I'm going to Control-C it, copy it, and then I'm going to come up here to the button layer, and I'm going to go ahead and paste it in place. Then I'm going to hit F8 and make this a new layer and call it button, but this time I'm going to make it a button and not a movie clip, and click OK. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to come over here to my properties, and on the style I'm going to go ahead and make it alpha so it's invisible entirely. So basically what we're doing is we're putting in an invisible button overlaying this entire thing. So that way, no matter where they click on it, it will take them to wherever we want them to take it to. So the final step here is, with your invisible button now selected, you are going to go to Window, Actions, and open up your Actions dialog box. And we're just simply going to put a get URL command into the button. So I'm just going to go ahead and double click get URL on the browser network settings right here. And I'm going to go ahead and type in my address. And if this part is confusing to you, I do have an ActionScript beginners tutorial that you can go ahead and look at, which is on my site, IncredibleTutorials.com. And I'm going to go ahead and just have it open in a self window. Okay, I think we are done, but let's go ahead and test this to be sure. So I'm going to go ahead and go to Control, Test Movie, and I'm just going to have to wait for it to export here. Had to wait for my external hard drive to boot up because I have plenty of them. Okay, we see it playing, and so far so good. I think it looks good. And if we click on it, takes us to the website. So that is exactly what we want. So there we go. Okie dokie. Come back here, and I'll show you guys really quick how to enable it to loop or not loop for that matter. There are a few things you can do to dictate if it animates in a loop or not, depending on how you export it. If we go to File, Publish Settings, we are taken to a dialog box here. Now, if you are intending to embed this into an HTML, you can go ahead and go to HTML, and you can go ahead and dictate if it loops here or pause at start or what have you right here. Alternatively, if you have Dreamweaver, I believe if you import this banner into Dreamweaver, you can dictate how many times it loops in there as well. So that's something to keep in mind if you are using Dreamweaver for your websites and you're putting this on a website. Another thing you can keep in mind too is if you are doing this as an animated GIF, which is a popular format for these type of things, you can go ahead and select the GIF image icon here and then go to the GIF tab. And then you can dictate the playback right here. And if you choose animated, you can have it loop continuously, or you can select repeat and then dictate how many times it repeats. For instance, if I put 3, it will loop 3 times, but after the third loop, it will then stop on the last frame. So that way it will only loop 3 times. One more thing you can do, a very easy thing you can do, is if you don't want this to loop at all, if you want it to play through once and stop at frame 400, you can simply go ahead and add a stop command in the Actions window. And I cover how to do that kind of stuff in my Intro to ActionScript 2.0 tutorial, which is in the beginner section on my website, if you need help with that. So those are just a couple more tips on how to optimize your banner for however you want it to work. So there you go. You have just created your first banner. I hope it was worthwhile. Anyway, I really do hope you found this tutorial helpful. And if you have any questions on the tutorial you just purchased, just go ahead and contact me on my website and I can help you however I can. And with that, I bid you farewell. I hope to see you guys next time.